What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I'm your host, David Haas, and I'm here today with a good friend of mine, special guest, guy I got introduced to through a spiritual group that I was a member of, and who has an amazing story. And, if you follow my content, that I've had my own struggles with addiction and learned how to overcome all of my addictions and become free. And Rob has a similar story, and I think it's definitely going to benefit anyone that is suffering from any type of addiction. Now, when we hear the word addiction, we always get thinking like drugs, alcohol, but there's addictions to all kinds of things. There's addictions to food, there's addictions to distraction, addiction to shopping, addiction to sex. So don't turn this podcast off just because you don't believe you have an addiction. This is more than just about overcoming an alcohol or drug addiction. It's also about discovering your true self so that it's no longer blocking you from achieving whatever it is you want to achieve in your life. So with all that being said, welcome to my friend, Rob Trimbulak. Thanks for being here, man. I think you have a great story just from what I have got to know of you. So why don't you just start people off and kind of tell people what the addiction was, how bad things got, and then we'll kind of lead into what was the moment that created the change.
Okay. For me, I guess it started out just like any other kid growing up. For a long time I didn't realize I had an addiction, right? I was hanging out with friends, just doing what everybody else does. And then the group of friends I hung out with, early high school probably started just partying a little bit. We call it dabbling, I guess. That's what I call it anyways. And just like everybody else around me, it seemed like. And I did that for a long time. For me, just getting out, having a good time with friends, I felt connected. I felt like I was, part of my friend's life. They were part of mine. I felt I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, really, doing what everybody else did. I didn't really see anything wrong with it. And I'll probably bounce back a little bit here and there because I've had realizations and awarenesses happen along the way and recontextualized. But I think my addiction started well before my first drink or smoking cigarettes or marijuana is kind of where it started. For me, adrenaline is where addiction started. I liked sports. That's where I really felt connected. I was good at it, and I would dive in all the way, right? That's what I could dive in all the way. In combination with that, probably I didn't feel that connected at home. There's something missing. Schoolwork, other types of things outside of hanging out with friends and school didn't quite feel right, but wasn't sure what it was. I just liked to get into my comfortable place, which was playing sports. And it went from there. The problem with just playing sports for me is I kind of took everything to the extreme. What I liked about sports was the adrenaline. I was good at it. But after, the sun went down, I'd like to cause trouble. And that was adrenaline again. This little stuff again, causing trouble in the neighborhood. It wasn't long before, it got me in a little bit of trouble with the police. Just mischief stuff, 15 years old, 16 years old. Again, it was just me being a kid. I always had a way of justifying or thinking it was no big deal. And that kind of brought me to grade 9, grade 10, where I tried drinking, I got my license. I found other people who liked drinking. We started going to parties, and I was really good at that. What happened slowly but surely, I stopped doing the sports and started doing more of the drinking and then, just mild drugs. I liked drinking more at first. Again, everything felt very normal, very, I felt good at it, but I could still do my thing, going to school. I could still have friends. I could still have girlfriends. Everything seemed normal to me. And I guess what addiction does, and again, so slowly, and addiction's very blinding, and it kind of works it very disguises itself in a way that I'd find other people that did what I did, right? Other people had common interests. Before long, I'd find different groups of friends from different high schools. So I was my addictions turned into an everyday thing really quickly, looking back. I thought I could live my life. I thought it was a way of life. I thought it was fun for me. Pleasure is what it was.
Yeah,
Again,
when you're in it, you usually just like you all of a sudden attract those type of people. Like when I was in it, I couldn't see people like I was like someone that didn't drink to me was like a four-eyed cat. I was like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
You don't drink. I'm like, I can't believe this. And it's funny that once I stopped drinking, even when I was in the stage of I was still miserable being sober, like I was still like felt like I was missing out in these. I would people started coming into my life that did not drink, and I have more friends now that don't drink than I do. Well, I wouldn't say that I do that do drink, but I have my real close tight knit friends are people that don't drink, which is crazy to me when I'm able to look back because I would never even consider hanging out with someone that didn't drink back in the day, right? And now I'm surrounded by people all the time, actually, and a lot of what I do is help people through addiction. A lot of the podcast content is about overcoming addiction, right? So it's just like once you get connected to it, now meaning whether it's good or bad, you'll attract more of that into your life.
Exactly. It's not much different than all the learning that I'm doing about the ego, right? The ego is, it disguises itself. It blinds you from the truth. It tells you you're doing things for a good time, but really it's an escape from probably some pain or some trauma. So I lived my whole life up till I kept trying. I think what I've done is I used one drug until it didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
The next drug till it didn't work anymore, and it escalated, and it never stopped. And then my job it was so easy to justify. Like I could lose a job and be in the trades from a contractor, and just go get another job from a different contractor. Like it didn't feel like you lost your job. Like if I worked in a full-time place like Chrysler or somewhere, you lose your job, you'd notice. You'd be like, wow, I just lost my job because of this stuff. And then there's so many people out there that party like that, like me, with their own issues that think they're having a good time in that area. Like I just didn't even notice. Like, and who knows if I would have noticed if I was in a different trade. Like it's just how it worked for me.
Yeah.
But eventually I was doing so many drugs and I could do them, it seemed like, better than everyone else. And I had so many groups of friends that it was every day. I started getting other people drugs, we'll call it, so I could get mine cheaper, my friends, right? So then now other people are coming and getting them from me, and that fed into using more and more and more. It moved into drugs that would stop me from eating, stop me from staying awake, and all that though, like I was doing good things, right? That's the other side of it. Like it wasn't just all party, all bad all the time. Like I met a beautiful woman who's still my wife. We started raising a family. Family got older. I started coaching their hockey teams and their baseball teams, and
all the while doing drugs.
Doing drugs during the day. It was painkillers. At night it was, cocaine and whiskey and beer, and wake up with the hangover, more painkillers. Just for every part of my life, I had a different drug. It seemed like. Yeah. I did that for a long time. I coached, and I was a good coach. Like we would win championships. I could teach. That's another funny part of addiction, and life really. But for me, it's about addiction, and like I could teach others spiritual principles, but I didn't believe in them or even was aware of them in myself. Like I could teach teamwork. I could teach doing the right thing. Meanwhile, I'm living a double life, like many people in addiction.
And I think that happens for a lot of people that start going down the path of spirituality. Is they are like teaching things that they haven't really truly fully yet discovered the truth for themselves yet, right? It's like, and I think part of that comes from, when you experience just a little bit of the power that comes from spiritual growth, your instantaneous reaction is, I want to help other people, right? But there's just so much more. And I think that's really where your story, makes a shift, is also like after the recovery, you continued down the path of, let's just say towards enlightenment, but it's just like this constant journey, right? So like, before we get to that though, like what was the moment for you when you were like, something's got to change?
So it's funny because really there was no moment. It was I do these daily meditation readings every day, and the one today was called The Gift of Desperation, God.
Yeah.
I was literally not allowed in my house anymore. We had a domestic issue. Couldn't see my kids unless they were over 18, which one of them wasn't. Finally lost my job. You know, they figured out I was living the way I was.
Yeah.
The money ran out. I was living in hotel rooms. People I was hanging out with stole my car. I was basically homeless.
Yeah.
I lived in someone's basement I didn't know.
Okay.
And really, again, looking back, you can't see yourself when you're in it. Really, there was just a series of events out of my control that got me into a treatment center through my place of work because they sort of kind of tricked me, but it's because they cared about me. Some people from work came and got me, pulled me up. My wife got a hold of another friend, my BA from work, pulled me out of a hotel room, convinced me to go to detox. I went to detox, tried to talk to my BA about, hey, I was going to kind of do maybe an outpatient thing and everything's going to be fine.
What's a BA?
A BA is a business agent,
Okay.
from our union. Our local
Okay.
union.
Okay.
Because through the construction trades, we have a place that a treatment center called De Novo.
Okay.
It's up north. It's in Huntsville now. It was in Sunridge. We pay like 2 cents an hour or something to send construction trade workers there.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah. So in De Novo, it means a new beginning of all things.
Okay.
So he pretty much told me, you're not going back to work. You're a liability, Rob, until you go to the treatment center.
Right.
So kicking and screaming, I went to that treatment center again. I didn't know there was a spiritual way to live really yet. I wasn't aware of it yet. I brought my drug of choice to the treatment center just in case it wasn't going to work out. Like, it's a scary thing to go and try and get yourself cleaned up when it's all you've done all your life. So really it took about 10 or 12 days for the physical withdrawal problems to kind of settle down. And then in those times, though, I was sitting in these meetings where people were sharing about these spiritual awakenings and this thing called honesty, right?
Yeah.
Because I was living a lie my whole life,
Oh, yeah.
sneaking and lying and cheating and with insecurities. And I heard all these people talking about it as I was in and out of sleep, almost coming off the drugs that I did. And I heard I read a little something on shame, and it just struck me like that's how I've been living. That's why I'm living the way I'm living. And from there on, I started sharing in those meetings.
Yeah.
And I just took off. Like, I just knew I had to change.
Yeah. Well, do you remember what the line was that you read?
It was a paragraph.
Okay. What was the basis of it, though? You know, like just basically like
just the energy, like
just the recognition that you've been avoiding feeling shame. Essentially.
Yeah, there was a trauma very young that I tried to bury.
Yeah.
And I didn't plan on telling anybody. It was one of those things I wasn't going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
Which really led me into not being able to tell anybody all about me ever.
Yeah.
My whole life, right? If you're hiding one big thing,
yeah,
it's hard to even know yourself. Never mind let someone else know you.
Right.
So that was the realization that I had kind of reading that passage in shame. It was just I was living this energy field that was keeping me there, and I had to tell somebody.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on, because like recovery programs, like was this recovery program based on 12 steps?
It's a 12-step program.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the steps in the 12 steps is take an inventory of all the things that you did wrong or done wrong to you or whatever it may be, and then I think the next step is go and apologize for them if it doesn't make things worse. So what has been your experience with that? Because that's one thing I find that I find myself questioning is like, is it necessary, especially for like a feeling of inner shame about a certain particular incident, is it necessary to go and reach out to that person that either caused you harm or you caused harm to, and really just get it all out on the table? Like, because sometimes I feel like, there's situations where it's just not going to change anything. I think the change needs to happen from within, right? It's like really about forgiving yourself. It's not so much about having the other person forgive you. So I mean, this is a completely random off topic, like, but not off topic, but like I didn't prepare you for it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So really my motivation for working through the steps and the process we go through in the 12-step program I'm in took me probably a year and a half to get to that step.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is by design. So now you're living a different way.
Yeah.
When you go to make those amends to maybe some people close to you that you hurt, like you've changed your behaviors. You're not just going in there with another empty apology.
Right.
That I really wanted to go try and kind of say sorry, because I never said sorry and meant it, or show sorry and meant it. So I'm still doing that but I've done it with the most immediate family, my wife, my kids, my parents.
Right.
Because there was a long list of hurtful things I did to them, right? And really it was, I know they got something out of it, but it really was for me to clean out my insides, to make sure they were clean, to make sure that through talking, through prayer and meditation and the higher power I have, that, I kind of felt like that was already all done, and that's how I was living, the way I was living now, like the forgiveness that I had for myself. But since the steps and the spiritual path I was on was working so well, I just kind of did what I was suggested to do.
Right. Yeah.
Because my way didn't work for over 2 decades. So.
Yeah, and the man, that right there, I think highlights like what is like so important. Not just about recovery from addiction, but for anything that you want to do in life is not ultimately is a moment of surrender. It's like, you're saying, in your gut instinct is being like, no, like I shouldn't go and apologize to these people, or I shouldn't go do this because it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to be vulnerable and all these things. But because of what you had already experienced, right? That on the other side of it, there's going to be way more power. And like I've experienced this time and time again. And one I talk about a lot is my desire for money. And I came to the realization through spiritual growth that if I was able to learn how to let go of my desire for money, then that would be the one thing that started allowing money to flow into my life. But I was so fearful of letting go of my desire for money, because I thought if I let go of my desire for money, I wouldn't get any money, right? But because I had that faith and just that, just that knowing that the changes that I had made were so powerful, I just went to work at starting to let go of that desire. And exactly what happened is once I let it go and I became free of it, money started flowing into my life. And it's just I guess, surrendering over to the idea that God, the universe, your creator, whatever your belief system is, has what is best for you always at the forefront, right? And the sooner you can make that connection and realization, the sooner you're going to start living the life that you've always felt like you're supposed to live, is the way I feel.
Yeah, I could kind of expand on that. So it's like that's step 3. We turned our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Okay. So for me, doing that, like I thought it was a one-time deal. Like I didn't know what the 12 steps were when I showed up to recovery. Right. No clue. Seen them. Step 1, I could agree with. Like we admitted we were powerless over our addiction and our lives had become unmanageable. Okay, you got me. I could admit that. Yeah. But then it started getting to a higher power and God and this and that, and I didn't have any experience with any of them that I knew of. So for me, I got to that step 3 and I realized my way's not working. Okay, turn it over. What is that? And I had a little bit of experience with that through a few weeks in treatment. And that was, for me, the first aha moment or awareness there was, it's my second tattoo, one of 4 since recovery. I had none before. Yeah. Because I didn't know who I was, but it's my higher power and family spirits. Like so many people got me to that treatment center that were just having thoughts, loving thoughts. Like I was probably going to die out there. It was bad for me. But the one I got stuck on was turning my will and my life over to the care of God, as I understood him, was my wife. Like I wanted to be able to convince her I was going to do this. Yeah, right. Instead of just say, okay, it's up to you, God. It's up to some other power, some other force out there. Universe, do what you will. And when I did that, we became closer. Kind of like your desire of letting go of money. Right. It was unbelievable to me. It was probably that was the final straw that okay, whatever works. Like it took some time. It doesn't happen. I didn't wake up and we were perfect, but we became friends again. When I got out of that treatment center, I lived with my grandfather. I accepted that there might be too much damage to repair, like too much hurt, and through doing that, changes started happening. We became closer.
Yeah. How did how did you, like, when you got picked up out of that hotel room and shoved into, the rehab, which was like, what an amazing gift that was given to you by those people that were closest to you. But how did you not fight it with everything that you had? Like, were you think you were just low enough? Like, your situation was just low enough? Like, you're living in a hotel, your car just gets stolen, and you're just like, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm messed up. Or was it like you did fight it and then the change happened once you were in there? Like, what was it, do you think?
Oh, I did fight it. There was drugs all over the place. They were grabbing them. I was grabbing them.
Yeah.
Pocket. So I was still hiding drugs, still doing drugs.
Yeah.
Again, it's so such a strange phenomena. So I end up in this treatment center, and you hear the story over and over again. But for me, the first time, I thought I was going there to learn how not to use drugs. I didn't know I was going to do inner work.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to have this spiritual awakening. But it happens as you're in there.
Yeah.
The dust settles, the cobwebs kind of go away. There's great counselors. They seem like angels for me. And they're like, Mark, the one guy I told everything to for the first time in my life, he asked me what I wanted. I remember this too. This was a good one for me. He asked me, like, what do you want out of life, Rob? And my answer was serenity. And I truly intended on serenity for my wife, to her have serenity, myself have serenity. And if we can have it together, that'd be even better. But if we can't, I can deal with that. And, that kind of was the start of true intentions for me. If I really have true intentions, it's going to happen, just a matter of when.
Yeah.
And how.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So, like, and depending on how much time you have, like, I went to treatment center twice in 7 months.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't happen the first time getting pulled out of that hotel room.
Yeah.
I came out, lasted 23 days.
Yeah.
Thought everything was good.
Yeah.
But I talked to you a little bit about getting clean's one thing, staying clean's another. Yeah. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of going to the right places and staying away from the wrong places, maybe the people you used to hang out with. And then you start to learn how to live without the use. Like, because I lived that way for 25 plus years.
Yeah, and I think at the heart of all addiction is some sort of emotional trauma. And for me, for alcohol, I was able to identify that emotional trauma, and it was powerful enough to learn how to become free of it that I was able to quit cold turkey, never went back, But with other addictions, like that I deemed like not as severe, sugar, caffeine, these kinds of things. These addictions, I went through the same experience of like kind of relapsing, and even though I had made the awareness around why I ate sugar, for example, like I came to the awareness that the reason I was eating sugar was because I never really had a caregiver in my life. My mom died when I was 9. My dad was kind of left to take care of me, and so he basically, all he did was make sure we had food and a house over our heads. I had to make my own lunches, make my own dinners, these kinds of things. I was kind of left on my own, and so I would be constantly searching for this caregiver, and I basically I was waiting for someone to take care of me before I started taking care of myself. Again, it's essentially the realization that I came to, and that realization, I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, I get it. It's a sense of like lack of self-worth, or like back to the victim mentality and apathy, being like you're waiting for a savior or whatever it may be. So I made the awareness. I let go of the feelings. But then the next thing I had to do was what you were just touching upon, was I actually had to change the patterns and the behaviors. Like I had to clean out my fridge, and I had to seek out the help of other people to start bringing me the new awarenesses, so I could put the new patterns in place, the new behaviors in place, the new habits in place, to finally allow those changes to stick. So that's what I think you're kind of talking about by like, removing yourself from some friends, and just changing like who you had become and getting yourself more realigned with who you truly were.
Right. So there's an unknown there you have to go through.
Yeah.
So we've got to feel like, and that's why going to these 12-step meetings and continuing on, and really they're like the timing of everything. Because now that I go to these meetings, like you said earlier, like you naturally want to help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, if I'm not careful, I can see how like not everybody is ready for that help.
Yeah.
So there's like there's a karmic value to it, or there's a timing of it all. because naturally, when I first started to get to know my true self away from using every day, yeah, sorry, I lost my thought there.
Yeah, that's all right. No, I get you. But like, let's now, let's come to the forefront now, and let's talk about like connecting to our true self, because I mean, this is essentially what spiritual growth is learning how to transcend the ego so that you can get connected to who you truly are and what your true purpose is on this earth, right? So what are some realizations that you think you made that just allowed you to start to connecting to your soul, your essence, and this eternal being? Like, how do you start? Like, if someone's listening, it's like, how do you start to transcend the ego? Like, what was the things that were like really highlighted for you that you think were critical?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going there.
Yeah.
I just started, like, new options start happening. Now I'm living in a different, like, I'm being honest.
Yeah. Honesty.
Number
one. Like,
huge.
that was that's my number one rule. It's like, start to live a life of integrity. Yeah. It changes everything.
Doing what's morally right when no one's looking.
Yeah.
Being a good person even when no one's got any eyes on you.
Yeah.
Because my spirit's always got eyes on me.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
Yeah. You know what? I once heard this, such a great line. It's like, when you die, there is no judgment from God. The only judgment that you will feel is the judgment you place on yourself, right? Because you're going to be able to look back and see your whole entire life and be like, oh shit, like, these are the moments where I could have done better, right? So that's the only judgment that you feel. But you can connect to that internal judgment right now just by, taking a look back in your life and seeing where you're judging yourself, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was saying too. Like, naturally, when I first was in that treatment center, I was wondering, why didn't I do this 20 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Then there's a guilt and regret.
Yeah. Again, and then that was like, there's just this karmically timed moment, right?
Yeah.
A moment that lasted a few years, and it's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so when I met Andrew,
yeah,
and
then
then we met at LaFleur Park, and you picked us up. Like, that was all.
Yeah.
That was only 3-4 months out of treatment center.
Okay, cool.
I was learning these spiritual principles, this new way of life.
Yeah.
I was finding that they overlapped in many areas. They're all inclusive. I heard all inclusive from you guys.
Yeah.
Because a big one for me when I first got there was the religion I knew was kind of separate from. It wasn't all inclusive.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I think let me expand on that, because I think that's a really good point, is that people get so stuck in their position of their religion. I mean, freaking wars are fought because of religions, right? And the thing that I think that I teach everybody, and that I've learned how to truly know for myself, is I'm not tied to any religion. By definition, I'm a Protestant. I think that's what I am. I can't even remember, but I'm Protestant. But I just identify with all forms of religion. Like, I identify with Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity. Like, and what I look to do is look for the similarities amongst those religions, and then I just don't tie myself to the positionality. Like, people, I got a tattoo of Jesus on my arm, but I believe in reincarnation, and like, so it's like, be like, what the hell are you doing, right? And it's like, no, it's like, I'm not tied to the positionality. And this is one thing that was huge for me, was with being a vegetarian. Is like, I was so attached to the position of vegetarianism that I just wasn't allowing people to have open conversations with me about it, because I was so defensive. It's like, you're not a vegetarian, you're an idiot, is the way I thought in my mind, right? So letting go of that positionality big time with the word God or creator or universe or higher power, just letting go of that idea that you dismiss that, and starting to, because if you do that and let go of that position or that opinion, then you can open up the doors to like all of the possibilities that exist. And I think that's what you experience a lot of, and this is what I experience. I mean, I tell Juliana here all the time, I was like, the only thing that keeps me awake at night is all the opportunities I have in front of me, and it's a really great place to live, to like just be able to say, I want to do this, I want to go down this path, I want to, it's such a great place, and it's because I was able to connect to that power, that power of connection, like the power of your true self, where you're free of all of the shit that happened to you in your life, and you learn how to truly heal from it. So it's no longer like, driving the bus, like some of the things I say, it's like, I came to the realization that it was like my like 13-year-old self was still behind the wheel of the bus, controlling every decision I ever made, and it's like, whoa, once you make that realization, it's like, do you want a 13-year-old behind the wheel of a bus? Like, hell no, you know, right? So for you, not only did you have this recovery, but now you're a pretty dedicated spiritual student, I would say, right? So it's like, what's your practice? Like, what you say you do a daily meditation? What meditation is that? What do you get from it? Just expand on it.
Well, I just so I found Kundalini yoga along the way.
Okay, yeah,
So I sit and I tune in with Kundalini yoga.
yeah,
That wasn't always the case, but that's the case the last year and a half or so.
yeah,
And then there's some movements, some yoga movements, which is basically stretching and breathing.
yeah.
And it just and I surrender immediately because my thoughts are already going, right?
Yeah.
Now those are my ego thoughts. So sorry.
What does surrender? Sorry to interrupt, but what does surrender mean to you? Like, what is the process? Because a lot of people get confused about surrender. So I just like to ask anyone that talks about surrender, like, what is it to you?
It's being in the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
It's letting go of all the noise in my head. It's mostly replaying things or trying to forecast. Like today, I could sit here and think about what I'm going to say the whole time. I've got enough experience to know I'm not going to say much of that or most of that. And it's definitely not going to come out how it's replaying in my head. So I try and surrender it, just not to waste my time with a bunch of rhetoric that's not really going to happen.
Love it.
So that I can...
And so surrendering to the present moment is also part of that surrender, I would think. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you correct me if I'm wrong. But it's also, by not thinking of the future or not thinking of the past and saying, I'm just going to be present, I'm going to allow what to happen. It's almost like saying, I'm allowing that higher power to kind of speak through me in some ways, like basically guide me to exactly where I need to go. So that's like the power that comes from connecting to the moment. It's like you're letting the ego go and you're saying, okay, God, like, what do you want me to say here? What do you want me to do in this moment, right? And just trusting that God, the creator, whatever, will do what is in the highest good for you.
Exactly. Some people call it intuition.
Yeah.
So getting back to my meditation, I would kind of recite the spiritual principles.
Okay.
Are many of them. There's 12 of them in the 12 steps,
Okay.
but I added some to them along the way, right?
Nice, yeah.
And they all align with peace and joy and love and truth and God, not ego, not fear, not worry, not anger. So then emotions come too from thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes I let go of those.
Yeah.
And you said guidance. And for me, especially early on, it took some practice to differentiate between ego and that source we talk of.
That's an important point you just made there, because I think one of the things that I talk about a lot is connecting to God, collective consciousness, and getting to the answer at everything But you need to learn how to realize whether that's a message from a higher power or whether that's an internal message that has a self-serving agenda, right? So what was there is there anything that you have there that is there a way whether it's coming from ego or is it coming from a higher power?
Most of the time, but not all of the time. Sometimes it takes a while.
Good.
Sometimes there's something physical, like chills.
Yeah,
I
was going to say, I feel it. Yeah.
Sometimes this one can be tricky though. Emotion, like my eyes can well up a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
But I know that's got meaning behind it, but it could still be driven by the ego. I get that. And then just surrounding yourself with people on the spiritual path and sharing with them what you're going through helps. Mm-hmm. Talking about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get to the answer just having a conversation with somebody without them even having any input. You kind of talk yourself through it, and you'd learn to, learn to dismiss what's not from my higher power, God, or from divinity. I just try and align with that the best I can, because I've been at such low energies, driven by the ego, and I've also been on the other side now, where I live most of my days in the spiritual path. And the spiritual path always has it's more selfless.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy doing things that I enjoy though. That's where it can get tricky for me too, right?
And I think probably the other thing that probably happened for you too is understanding what you actually enjoy. That was a big one for me. Is I remember I always tell this story, but when I was drinking and all that stuff, I wanted to learn how to play guitar, right? And so I went about and I started learning how to play guitar, and And then as I started going down this spiritual path and like I started becoming free of my addiction, started getting connected to my true self, I came to this realization that the only reason I wanted to learn how to play guitar was to pick up chicks. And I was like, I wasn't really that interested in actually learning how to play guitar, right? So it's like, this is one of the things that happens is you start getting rid of all of those ego beliefs and programs. And all those ego beliefs and programs are survival patterns to make you avoid feeling a certain way. So for me, this is an example. For me, learning how to play guitar was a mechanism that I used to not feel like I wasn't attractive to women, let's say, right? Like, so it's like once you realize that, oh shit, this is actually what was motivating me, and you go back and you heal from it, then you might realize the things you thought you were interested in, you have zero interest in at all. And that was a big one for me. It was like, oh yeah, like I'm not even interested in half the shit I'm doing. I was just doing it because I was trying to cover up not feeling a certain way. So did you have any experiences like that, or?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, do I really want to spend all this time doing this? So I played baseball for a couple of summers. Yeah. I like baseball, but I started wondering, like, is it, do I like baseball because when I was a kid I played baseball, and before my addictions took baseball from me, now I want to play again, because we're always changing too. Like, yeah, I did like baseball, and I still do. And actually this summer I wasn't going to play, like try and play baseball twice a week, go running twice a week, play hockey, help people, go to meetings. I was getting away from my family again, right?
Right.
So that's kind of why this work is always ongoing, this spiritual work, this inner work. It's fun for me now. Like when I first started going through the 12 steps, it was wasn't so much fun, right? I had to get a lot of garbage out. But now it's like, and you touched on it earlier. And again, I got to watch the ego doesn't get involved. Anytime I'm doing something really good to help somebody, I know something's going to come on the other side of it. Mm-hmm. So I got to watch my motives and my intentions, right?
Yeah.
Like, am I just helping somebody because I know something good's going to come? Well, it doesn't work that way, right? It's got to be like spontaneous and selfless. And
yes, you 100% have to have the intention to help people, and then everything will just work itself out if you can get clear with that intention. But yeah, you're right on that. You definitely have to check the ego to make sure that you still don't have self-serving, programs working when you're saying I'm helping people. You can't trick the universe. You can't trick God, right? So that power will see right through that, and people will also see right through that.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that I always love now is that now that I learned to live a life of integrity, where I'm just like I'm never gonna lie, cheat, steal, do any of that kind of stuff. It's like I can see right through people's bullshit now. It's like I have employees that call in sick. I'm like, I know that you're not sick, like it's like, you think you're pulling the wool over my eyes here. It's like, I mean, I've been like I know exactly where you're coming from, but like, do I call them out on it? No, it's like it's part of their path, right? They gotta find their own way. And that is like one of the things that I think maybe you've experienced some of this, is that as you begin to grow spiritually, one of the things you got to protect yourself from is developing a spiritual ego, right? And I had moments like that. I always tell the story about when I was in this movie theater, and I hate horror movies. I never go to any horror movies like my whole life. But, I would say I used to be attracted to like anger movies, revenge, this kind of thing. But anyway, so my friends convinced me to go to this horror movie, and during the movie, like people were shouting for people's death. It was what was the name of that movie? Get Out, I think. Yeah, I think something like that. It was like a really popular movie. Anyways, people are like cheering for people getting killed, and I'm in this completely different state than these people, right? And actually in the movie, someone ended up throwing gum and hitting my friend in the head. We almost got in a fight, and I got out of the theater, and I'm never gonna surround myself with like these low levels of consciousness pieces of shit ever again. And I was like in this spiritual ego mode. And then so for me, immediately what I always do is like when I'm triggered, it's like it's an opportunity to look within and say, what's still going on here, right? And it's like what was showing me there is like there's still anger inside of me that I still need to deal with, right? And I still need to go back and like allow that anger to flow. And there's a lack of acceptance for where everyone else is at, right? So did you have any moments at all where you caught yourself with like that spiritual ego?
Yeah, and then it's really hard for me with my kids, watching my kids grow up, right?
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Because maybe they're dabbling, but are they? Right?
Yeah.
Because of my experience.
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful how I want to influence them, but I can't push this on them.
Yeah.
The spiritual path that I'm
Yeah.
on, right? So that happens. That's a constant for me.
Yeah.
I worry about my daughter. She got a scholarship, right, for wrestling.
Oh, nice.
And I just want her to be happy, right?
Yep.
And I see a lot of people. So here's what I see: a lot of people trying to get, because I did it forever.
Mm-hmm.
And in the construction business and in the rooms, I see a lot of people trying to create happiness from things out there.
Yeah. That's like the
It's
pinnacle of my
everywhere.
coaching.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I'm teaching. It's like, and that's, Andrew's one that taught me. It's like never about what's going on out there. It's always about what's going on in here. So, and I think that's where you were in the beginning when you said when you went into counseling or the program, you were like, I thought they were teaching me not how to use drugs, right? And they thought they were going to teach you some new knowledge, something that you could add to your life in order to change it. And that's, I think, where a lot of people are stuck. It's like, I need to add the boyfriend or girlfriend. I need to add money, add the car, add the promotion, and then I'll be happy. And then I'll allow myself to be free, But the only freedom that exists is from freedom from within. Yeah. So I think that's a big one for people.
Yeah. In recovery, they say if you're pointing your finger at somebody, there's 3 pointing back at you. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That principle is one that I think is really tough for people to grasp because, I get pushback a lot of that with that in coaching because I'm like, someone's mad at their mother or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, what is your mother doing like in this moment? And because it's triggering you, is basically saying that still exists within inside of you, and they'll really push back because they don't want to do the inner work or accept that that's still happening inside of them. So yeah, that one I love that one, and I love that analogy too. It's like if you're pointing a finger at someone, there's 3 pointing back, and it's 100% true. It's just an indicator, and I've learned to use that as a tool now. It's like if I'm judging or if I'm getting angry or getting triggered by something, it's like, whoa, let me take a look inside, because any emotional trigger, good or bad, actually, I'm like, what's still happening inside of me, right? It's like if I get, let's say I sign up a client for $10,000 and all of a sudden the ego starts getting inflated and I'm feeling really good. I'm like, whoa, what's happening here, right? Or if I miss signing up a client and I missed out on that, I just sold my Tesla stock, way too early, and it's freaking up at $1,500. I sold it at $980, and I'm like kicking myself, and it's like, okay, what does that trigger? Well, the sense that the fear of poverty, the fear of death, all these kinds of things. I still need to go back, still need to do work. So I use those moments throughout my day as like little tiny triggers. I mean, I use the triggers, as like little windows to like look through and be like, what's still going on here?
Yeah. So I kind of identify that with, looking at life as having joys and challenges instead of like hurdles and burdens. And,
yes,
like there's opportunities to learn. That's such a different way to look at life instead of, the world's out to get me and I got these bills to pay and I'm never going to catch up. It's so like another good one was for me, like the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. Mm-hmm. I started to see the glass half full, having gratitude, right?
Yeah.
I do that every morning.
Gratitude. Yeah. Gratitude's a game changer. And that's my number 2.
Like as soon as I wake up.
Yeah. First thing I do. And I'm sure you've already experienced this, but like, is gratitude just turned on in you now? It's just like, are you grateful like all the time? Do you catch yourself expressing gratitude all the time? Or is it still happening only for you, like when you're writing it out in the morning?
Of course it doesn't happen all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, however, I know that put myself in that frame of mind, I'm a better person and I can act and behave more how I want to be, aligned with my source. Right. My source is grateful to be here. For all I know, I gave myself this opportunity to be here, like through source energy, through God, right? So that's how I look at life, and like life is a gift I've given to myself.
I love that. That's cool.
Like how else could, what do I have to be angry about? What do I have to be frustrated about? Is it just I'm just so happy to be here today.
Yeah, and I think what I'll add to that is like, I think people need to realize that no matter how bad things get, you're going to be okay.
Oh.
Even if you die, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then that coming to that realization is really, it takes a lot of deep spiritual work. But when you come to that realization, you're like, oh, well, if I'm going to be okay, it's like, what am I getting so caught up in this day-to-day BS, getting angry at someone driving too slow, or angry at my parents, or worried about the extra 5 pounds that I have on me, or whatever it is. It's just like, you're gonna be okay. Just keep moving forward. It's like, just keep connecting. Like, connect to God. Find out what you're supposed to do, and then once you get truly connected to that passion, that purpose will come through, and then it's like you're gonna wake up every morning like you're gonna spring out of bed when you really truly connect, right? So two more things I want to talk about before we wrap this thing up is do you still find it, like, how long have you been sober now?
Or just over 4 years.
Okay, so 4 years of sobriety. Do you still find it a struggle to remain sober?
Not at all.
Yeah, 100%. I assumed that was going to be your answer, and I think I think one of the things that might turn people off from 12-step is that it's just like with that little thing. It's like, you don't have to be sober forever. You just have to be sober today, or you don't have to you don't have to not drink forever. You just have to not drink today, and that is their little kind of like mind fuck to get you into the present moment, right? Which is amazing, and I get it. But I think a lot of people that are thinking about quitting something believe that their life is going to suck because they don't have alcohol, they don't have sugar, they don't have shopping, sex, whatever the hell they're addicted to, but there will be a moment. And I went through this, probably the first 2, maybe 3 years of being sober. I was the most miserable motherfucker on earth. Or literally I was miserable because I thought I was sacrificing something to obtain something, but something shifted along the way. And this is now what I use this exact same approach to quit eating sugar. Was I was miserable and it was tough and in the beginning, but then all of a sudden now it's like, I don't ever think, I own a fucking bar and I'm around alcohol all the time. I don't never think about taking a sip of alcohol, right? So I just now know that if I can just get through the first little bit, on the other side of it, I'm going to get to this place of like euphoria almost, where I'm just like, there is no struggle for me to not drink alcohol anymore, right? And even with sugar, it's like I'm still feeling the cravings a little bit because it's early. I'm only 3 months in, but it's like I know that I just keep pushing past. I'm going to get to this moment where like, whoa. So now I've applied it to other areas of my life, right? So I guess the one thing is like that I wanted to highlight and you did for me was like, it's not a struggle anymore, right? Like that's what I think people think it's going to be a struggle forever. It's like, no, there's going to come a point when you're going to go, I'm good. You can be around all the alcohol you want, all the drugs you want, and there's no chance in hell that you're going to do a line. Like, yeah, 100%. So that's good. The second thing is what's your involvement now with 12-step? Like, are you still going to meetings? Are you still, are you sponsoring people? Like, what is it? Like you said, like, like helping people is what you're connected to now and sharing your message. So it's like, how are you moving towards that?
Yeah, so I've just thinking about that, sitting here. When am I going to tell you about that? Yeah, so I have a sponsor, which is huge, a mentorship, right? A coach, like a life coach, sponsor. And that's what I got the second time I came out of that treatment center right away.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Different from the first time.
Yeah.
And in that, just sharing experience, strength, and hope, and going to meetings. I sponsor a couple people now. Oh,
nice.
So you're always learning and teaching, right?
Yeah.
In the teaching, you're learning, and the learning, you're teaching, and it's just a circle. Like, so yeah, I still go. I got a home group. It's Friday nights now with this COVID. We got Zoom meetings, right?
Like
everywhere else.
Good.
I'm involved in that, and yeah, I go there for myself, but I mostly go there to help the newcomer, and it's a good place to where people are trying to change, and they don't necessarily go to treatment, right? They just walk into these rooms in pain, and they're looking for a new way of life.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to help people. Yeah,
I love it. What do you think, if someone's listening to this podcast and they're struggling with addiction, what do you think is like the starting point? Might just be listening to this podcast. If you're listening here, you're basically if you've listened this far, you've already basically made the determination that you need help. I think that's where it comes from. And yeah, maybe let's highlight on that, the needing of help. I think that's what a lot of people resist coaching, the recovery programs, is like because they believe they can do it on their own.
There's that. And then for me, it was just the embarrassment that I was what's going on.
I know. I love that.
Or I would always try and get to a place where it wasn't so embarrassing. Then I'll ask for help. Like I've got it mostly figured out or
I
half
gotcha.
figured out. The mostly and the
Oh,
half
man.
never came. You know.
That's gold. I
Yeah.
love it. Right. I love it. And then where are you with that embarrassment now? Completely free.
There
of
is
it?
none.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is
Yeah,
none at all.
Obviously there's none. You're here sharing your story on the
Yeah.
podcast, right? So
No.
I love that because that's something that never came to me was like the fear of the judgment, the fear of embarrassment could be the one thing that is preventing you from seeking the help that you need, right? So just tuning into that and making that realization, hey, is that your 10-year-old still driving the bus here? It's like the 10-year-old that got in trouble when they did something wrong or whatever. So it's just that awareness alone might be enough energy to get someone to say, hey, walk through the doors of an AA program, hire a coach, get a therapist, whatever it may be, reach out to, somebody to finally ask for that help. Right.
Yeah. And you don't have to stick to just the 12-step program.
No.
That's the problem that some people think, oh, just stay here and you'll be fine. But you can get the outside help too. And you can find, like I found the group we belong to.
Yeah. Right.
Samiana.
Yeah.
I found the Hawkins books through them.
Yeah.
I try and pass them along into the 12-step recovery as much as I can. Like there's spiritual teaching,
Definitely.
like just
Yeah, and I
beyond
think-
words in there.
I think that's important too. It's like, this is what I've helped a lot of people with addiction. And I think it's just like, you just got to find what works for you,
Yeah.
maybe 12 steps for you. Maybe there's other programs that are you, maybe, Kundalini yoga is whatever it is, but it's just got to find what works for you. But at the core of it all though, is spiritual growth, like, connecting to those spiritual principles, transcending the ego, learning what emotional traumas that you had and learning how to transcend them, be free of them forever. That's at the root of all of these things, religions, everything. Right. So, I think I think you delivered a ton of value there, Rob. And, you're doing great stuff. I see, you probably helping more and more people as time goes on, the deeper you get. Like that's what I kind of experience, because I've been sober for 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in September. And just the further I went along, the more and more people I wanted to help. The more I understood, the more I wanted to help. So I can see you really like taking on a role, like a bigger role with that. Because I think at your core, you probably feel like that's what you're meant to do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just kind of learning how to articulate it, learning how to translate it through words, and learning exactly which avenue I want to take to do that, for sure. It's been great.
No, man, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of it. So, thanks for coming on the podcast, and we'll have to have you back in a couple of years and see where you're at.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Right
on, man. Just to remember, if you haven't subscribed already, just make sure you click that subscribe button. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Rob has an amazing story. If you're struggling with any addiction, there's all kinds of programs. But I think what Rob highlighted here is like just tune into what the resistance is to actually asking for help. And if you are having trouble, you can hit me up on any of my social media platforms. Everything's David F. Haas on all platforms. So thanks for taking the time to listen. We'll see you guys again next Wednesday.